Now, does anybody know what this institution is? Yes, this is the Vatican. Let's turn in our Bibles to the book of 2 Thessalonians. Let's turn in our Bibles to the book of 2 Thessalonians. Let's notice what the sacred word says in 2 Thessalonians. Again, we're talking about this idea of collective deception. We're talking about this experience of slavery here in the Americas and really the world at large. 2 Thessalonians, notice what the Bible says about this satanic institution. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, starting in verse number 3. The Bible says, let no man... Isn't it amazing that the Bible continually emphasizes that we shouldn't be deceived? Why do you think the Bible communicates this again and again and again? Because deception is Satan's modus operandi. If he can deceive us, then his power over us is sure. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away what? Now, when this says that day shall not come, what day is that referring to? This is talking about the second coming of Jesus. Does that make sense? We first, that the man of sin be revealed, the son of what? Perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called what? So the Apostle Paul is saying, don't be deceived. The second coming of Christ will only happen after this man of sin is revealed. All right. It says, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you what? These things. And now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his. For the mystery of iniquity doth already. So the Apostle Paul was saying that the principles that would develop into the papacy were already at work in the first century. Does that make sense? It says, only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his. So the Bible is saying that this antichrist system would last all the way to the second coming of Christ. That makes sense? Now, what is the only institution that could qualify as having its beginnings even in the first century and that would last all the way to the end of time? Only the papacy. If the papacy is not the antichrist of Bible prophecy, then there is no antichrist. Then there is none. Now again, what subject are we going through this weekend? Are you woke? We're talking about this slavery reality. I wonder if the Roman Catholic institution is one of the great progenitors of this slavery issue. Let's turn our Bibles to the book of Revelation. Let's turn our Bibles to the book of Revelation, chapter 18. There's a saying that says, all roads lead to what? All roads lead to Rome. Revelation chapter 18, we're going to start in verse number 10. Revelation 18, starting in verse number 10, it says, standing afar off for fear for torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour thy judgment is come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth her merchandise any more. The merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones. So does she even have control of the economic system? Yes. And of pearls, and of fine linen, and purple, and silk, and scarlet, and thyine, and wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels, and most precious wood, and of brass, and of iron, and marble, and of cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and what? And slaves, and souls of men. Now again, dear friends, is this serious? This is very serious. Now, anybody know who this man was? A gentleman who called himself Pope Alexander VI. Anybody know who this man was? Man by the name of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus is touted as being one of the great bastions of what they call Western civilization. It's Western deception. All right, so this is Pope Alexander VI. Now we're going to find out some of the reality of the beginnings of this slavery issue. This says, taken from the Telegraph, on this day in what year? Now, is that a long time ago? Yes, it is. On this day in 1493, I wish we had time to talk about what was happening during this time. A papal bull divides the world into two between Spain and what? What is the reason as to why Latin America, the whole of Latin America, speaks Spanish? As a result of Spanish colonialism. Does that make sense? Why does Brazil speak Portuguese? Were the indigenous of Brazil speaking Portuguese before the Portuguese came? Of course they weren't. It was as a result of colonialism, and it started with this papal bull. This says in 1492, Christopher Columbus headed across the Atlantic on his first what? Now, was Christopher Columbus going on this voyage to spread the lovely and glorious truths of the gospel? He was merely spreading Roman Catholic Western imperialism. That's all he was doing. He did not find North America, which he never saw on any of his voyages, but he did stop off in the Bahamas, Cuba, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. His patrons, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella of what? Of Spain, were overjoyed at his reports of tropical paradises. It was merely a money-making operation. That's all it was. Fortunately for them, there was a Spaniard in Rome who could help. Now we're going to skip past this. Now, does anybody know what this is supposed to depict? This is supposed to depict the natives of North America. Now, do you think as Christopher Columbus came to the so-called New World, do you think that he treated these wonderful people with love, kindness, and respect? Now, again, we're talking about are you woke and the reality of collective deception. This is taken from a very powerful volume called Slavery and Catholicism, written by a Roman Catholic. Notice, a Spanish Pope, Alexander VI, gave the title Catholic by eminence to the sovereigns Ferdinand and Isabella. We just read that. And it was those Catholic kings who first united, reconquered Spain under their scepter to maintain the purity of the Catholic faith in their realms. At the bottom, and this encyclopedia could just as well have continued by saying that this discovery of America and the conquest of Africa combined to write one of the blackest pages in the history of mankind. In the history of mankind. Notice, on page 86 of the Spanish Conquest gives us Columbus's description of the gentleness of the natives and when he thus expresses himself. Notice what Christopher Columbus said about the natives of North America. They are a loving, uncovetous people, so docile in all things that I assure your highness, I believe in all the world there is not a better people or a better country. Can you imagine? Now, were these native persons of North America, were they Bible-believing Christians? No, they weren't. So how was it that they had the fruits of the Spirit, but they didn't have the Bible? You see, the Bible tells us in the book of Romans that even the heathen world comes to a knowledge of God as a result of studying his deity in nature. And as a result of them studying the power of God in nature, the fruits of the Spirit were embedded in their souls so much to the point that this colonizer, Christopher Columbus, said that they are the most docile people in the entire world. Now, in light of them being so docile, how do you think Christopher Columbus repaid that gratitude?
Mercy, Lord.
Well, let's see.
Mercy.
This says, they love their neighbors as themselves. Now, where did I read that? Where did I read that? Now, mind you, these are not the words of the natives. These are the words of Christopher Columbus himself. They love their neighbors as themselves, and they have the sweetest and gentlest way of talking in the world, and always with a smile. Do you think that we could learn something from them? Lord have mercy. You see, brothers and sisters, many of these individuals that we are going to meet by the grace of God when we get into heaven. Again, it's not leaving the impression that all of the natives were like this, But this disposition was so universal that Christopher Columbus could say these things about them. Does that make sense? All right. It is not most lamentable that these gentle people were ever given the benefit, in quotations, of contact with Catholic Christians of Spain. A quotation from Columbus's own journal will show how paramount in the mind of Columbus was the matter of slavery and the financial gain from the what? So again, slavery from the very beginning was not about racism, it was about economics. Now, what does the Bible say is the root of all evil? The love of money.